Welcome to Susie's Enchanted Crossroads, a podcast that helps you navigate your journey through the crossroads. I'm Susie, and together we will be taking a deeper look into witchcraft and spirituality. So settle in, and let's get this episode going. All right, here we go. Oh man, I really did miss y'all. Thank you for sending amazing, beautiful messages that you're excited for season two. Your excitement makes me excited. So, all right, let's get started. How are you doing today? Truly, how are you doing today? Yeah, I I feel the energy a little bit lighter for myself. Thank fuck. Um, as I said in the first episode of season two, I really felt like I was trudging through like heavy, just I don't, you know what came to mind is like if I was like in like marsh, and I've never even been in a marsh, but like thick mud that's just like caked, and you're trying to like pick up your leg in front of the other, and it's just like it takes all of your energy to lift up one leg and then put it in front of the other, and then lift the other one out of the muck and in front of the other just to like take the smallest of steps. That was the energy. That's that's what I was feeling around the world. That's how I was feeling in my inner world. And I felt like there nothing was just what can be lightening up this mud? Seriously, man. But with everyone, with your kind words and friends like reaching out, I need to do a little recap, okay? But this is going to be lightning quick. Go back to season one where I very first started this podcast, and I went back and I was like, it almost felt a little cringy, like, ooh, because I was trying to get my bearings, being on my own for this podcast, all that good stuff. But we're gonna talk about just really, really quick, cleansing, grounding, shielding, okay, and veiling. Because I was getting some questions on I don't veil. Should I be veiling? What is veiling? I hear a lot of witches talking about we need to veil and shield ourselves. So, I do, anytime I've already done an episode, I obviously will answer your question kind of quickly, but for more in-depth information, I will refer you back to the episodes. So, I do have, grounding and cleansing, different methods, all that good stuff. Now, let me, and I will repeat this until I'm blue in the face, purple in the face. What works for me may not work for you. What works for the witch that you follow on TikTok may not work for you. And vice versa. You're going to find your own groove of things as you progress. And like I said in episode one, even if you've been on this journey before, there might be things that come up where you go, oh, you know what? I actually might try that. And then boom, you have something brand new. That's what's so beautiful about this. There's just so many avenues you can come in and out of. So the only other thing I will say is this a little bit. So there was some things going on around social media, and I love how we really don't have to hide in some places, right? More often than not, but we don't really have to hide about calling ourselves pagan or calling ourselves a witch or, that you're spiritual or whatnot. I love that it's becoming, it's more mainstream. And I know some people are like, oh, well, it it blows my mind. It's like, well, we had to do it on our own, and there wasn't anything else except Wicca. Da, da, da. It's like, yeah, but that's us paving the way for these new witches and these new witches coming in, but it's not really that you're a baby witch because I personally, this is me, I really don't like the term baby witch. And I can get into it later, but you're just awakening that part of yourself and acknowledging it instead of ignoring it, you know? And you're just new to certain things. And the thing is that those of us that are coming out of maybe religious trauma, what we begin to start doing, and not me, but what's starting to happen and what I'm witnessing is that religious trauma is starting to come into your craft, and certain people begin saying things like, that's not how you do it. That's not how it's done. You're doing that wrong. Saying things like hexing is bad. It's gonna come back to you threefold, like the threefold law. And that's on religious trauma, right? That's on not not allowing those that are new into the craft to see what really works for them. Now, again, you don't want to cause injury to yourself or others. So, for example, in one of my very first videos, okay, I was dressing candles. Total noob. I know. In hindsight, I was like, what the fuck are you doing, girl? But as I had dressed a candle and I lit it, just to see how it was going, that sucker was catching on fire because I dressed it. But the candle was like one of those small little ones. And hello, like the stuff I was putting in there was obviously going to get too close to the wick and it caught fire. Not like crazy fire, but if I wasn't watching it, then it might have gotten out of hand, you know? So I would say things like, or, been like, oh shit, I wish I would have learned a little bit more about, fire safety in dressing candles as I was starting my journey, Not coming, I don't want to see someone in my comments like, oh my gosh, this is what's wrong with the spiritual community today. Y'all don't think and fire la 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 la. That's not helpful. What is helpful is, when you're dressing candles, when the smaller the candle, obviously less is more, but you can still utilize that herb or that flower if you use a mortar and pestle and use it more as something ground, finely versus obviously the bigger petals or leaves that might catch a little bit quicker, unless that's the intention. See the difference? Also, you shouldn't use this or that because you don't know how to use it correctly without giving a reason. Now, if you notice somebody's using, I don't know, I'm going to go way out there and say like belladonna, right? That's obviously poisonous. So, unless they're giving, saying this is why I'm using it and they're using the proper precautions, you should still always do your research before you start handling things, first off. And second, when you're commenting on others' videos, not to be so mean. Hello, there's no reason to be so damn mean. Um, but just being mindful, like, hey, I know you said you're using belladonna. I know you said you're new to the craft. Just be, just be cautious. You might want to wear some gloves. I've had a blah 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 blah, right? And vice versa. You don't want to just be following someone on TikTok or wherever and just be doing a spell that they did, verbatim without any proper research either. So, before we comment and start being ugly as anything, we want to stop and ask ourselves why we feel triggered at this moment. For myself personally, born and raised Catholic, a lot of times we're told that this is how it's supposed to be done. And you don't even need to be religious to see like in the news or, in reels on how certain people of certain religions say it has to be this way because that's what's in this book. When what they're quoting isn't the full scripture or the full story, and they take it out of context. So we want to make sure that we approach things with people and, these videos with kindness, right? And just sit with ourselves on why is this triggering me? And what am I going to, if whatever I'm going to type or respond to, is it going to be helpful? Because it's so easy to be mean. Oh my gosh. It's so easy to hide behind that screen, right? But as we're all on our spiritual journey, let's help each other. We don't have to be so condescending. It's not this way and no way. There's so many avenues, right? Even like in divination, there's, cartomancy where we're, reading tarot, oracle. Some people still read a regular card decks. There's scrying. You can scry in the mirror. You can scry in your crystals. Water. People scry flames and fire. We have pendulums. I'm looking around. We have runes, witch tokens, and people look to the stars. And there's just so many things that you can do. Bone casting and charm readings, wax reading. There's so much that we can embrace it with curiosity instead of being judgmental. So as I name these things off, don't you be coming at me. I know y'all don't come at me. But again, what works for me may not work for you, and what works for you may not work for me. But I would love to hear what you do. That's the whole point of this podcast, right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry. That I got a little bit on a tangent there, but it's just been so rampant. And a friend of mine was like getting so much like negative comments on something where they were just doing a cute little trend, and I didn't even get to see it. Um, I don't even know what they were talking about. I was like, well, what's the issue? But I mean, to say like, oh, I'm so disappointed you're in this trend or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Maybe we're just having fun and weren't aware. So look, I don't know everything. Okay? I'm trying my best. But we each have our own lives, and like I'm not just me personally, I'm not just this person in front of a mic, talking to you and giving you information and us coming back and forth having a conversation together. Equally, like there's so many things going on not only in the world, but in the country I live in, and then the state that I live in, and then the city that I'm living in, and then on at the place that I work at, and then my mini business. You know what I mean? So let's just, come together with kindness in our hearts because it's so easy just to go negative and be mean. And with that being said, this is why it's important that we shield or that we cleanse, ground, and shield ourselves. So before we get into veiling, I talk about this, like I said, in season one, in the very early episodes, about practices and what we can really do about grounding, cleansing, and shielding, right? It's our protections. So there's different ways of cleansing. I really love a smoke cleanse, but I understand that, maybe you can't use smoke. But also like a bell is really nice. I can't really use a lot of bells. It upsets my parrot. Doesn't really like it. So you can even use music or binaural beats. You can use your own voice. You can clap your hands to clear the energy. The thing is that it's coming from you. And this is how it's just the importance of energetically cleansing is so important. So maybe it's yourself. You can even do taps. Yeah. Clapping in the space just to clear the space is just like the smoke cleanse. So energy affects you, whether you think it does or not, whether you can feel it or not. You don't have to be an empath. You don't have to be super psychic to feel this energy. It's just like when there's, two people have been fighting in a space and you walk in and the atmosphere feels thick, like you can cut the air with a knife. That's the energy. And you can be absorbing that energy from a space, a room, from like a bus or subway as you're traveling. That holds a lot of energy because people are constantly in and out and in and out. The office where you work, especially if you have people, all kinds of people coming in and out all the time. It could be a situation that's constantly draining your energy. What else? Energy could be thrown at you, like the evil eye, all that stuff, like jealousy. And it's just, oh, and your devices, 100,000%. That's why when I'm doing Reiki, people are like, well, how does distance Reiki work? If I'm not in person with you, how is it possibly working? And I love the analogy of what my Reiki master taught us. Have you ever watched a video on your phone, a TikTok, an Instagram reel, Facebook, whatever you're on, or someone sent you something and you laughed out loud, like it gave you a chuckle, or it made you nostalgic, or where it hit the heartstrings. You weren't there to witness it, but you are feeling through it. That's like me sending you that Reiki energy, right? So it's like a couple of weeks ago here in my city. If you've never seen Dune, you can just Google it real quick, Dune, and that's literally what my city looked like Arrakis. The winds, horrendous. Being in the desert, ugh. And the pollution was bad. The air quality was so bad. So think of cleansing, how we need to breathe fresh, clean air. We also want to be around fresh, clean, positive, light, uplifting energy. We want to make sure that the energy field that we have around us is like a filter, right? We're filtering out the energy that we don't want around us to either meditate, sit and journal, doing spell work, about to do a reading, about to do channeling. That's like putting yourself in that protective bubble. So we want to cleanse the energy of the space around us. So if I'm about to do a tarot reading, I always cleanse. Now, in the space that I always do a reading, my space is usually always protected, cleansed, and shielded. But I still like to come in with that added little bit of incense, like just in case. Anything that just kind of maybe snuck in a little, you know, cleanse that out. Now, same after you do a working, after you work with someone, um, you also want to cleanse that energy off of you because you don't want to keep holding on to that. And I'm not just talking about, you read cards for somebody or, you cleanse homes or anything like that. This could be everyday. What are you doing? Even if you're a nurse, a teacher, you work in an office, when you deal with people, even if you're just a friend listening to another friend's a problem, you need to also make sure that you cleanse yourself of their energy. And I'm not talking about, oh, it's just heavy energy, so and so and so and so. We broke up, we had an argument, I fought with my mom, work sucks, whatever. Even like when it's exciting and that's a lot of energy, it's almost like the Energizer Bunny just going and going and going and going, and it's so excited. You also need to cleanse that energy off of you too, because that can also be equally draining. So this practice could be done um, at the end of each day, like when you're taking a shower. Um, you can even do it to where I personally like to have crystals either hanging on a doorknob or above the door frame, just, being careful that, it's not going to fall on somebody. But anytime anyone crosses that threshold, it cleanses the energy of that person. So that way they're not bringing their muddied energy in. I don't like people to wear shoes in my house. Okay. Yes, I'm that person. I have taught y'all and being a teacher, especially in the lower levels when I taught elementary level and even middle school, the things you see makes you think, hell no, I'm not bringing these shoes into my house. Ugh. So that's how I see as people when people come over into my space, right? Even me, if I had like a shitty freaking day, I would love to leave that out the door. And sometimes it's hard, because it still weighs on me because I hold things so personally sometimes. So having those crystals for myself, just kind of cleansing that energy through, at least I have a layer of that that's cleansed out. Now the rest I got to do on my own if it's, pretty heavy. So again, that could be lighting a candle for yourself, incense, putting some music on, that's uplifting and cleansing for yourself. Even if it's the same song, program that song to cleanse your energy, either in the space or on you. Okay, I went heavy on the cleansing, but it's so important to cleanse. You can even just visualize it. That's how easy it could be. You don't have to mirror somebody else's things. Now, grounding. A lot of times we can live up in the head, okay? And going back to that root chakra, we really need to find time to ground ourselves. And this is at its most basic. It's connecting you back to like earth, okay? It's grounding really draws you back into your body and it stabilizes your energy, okay? So there's so many things that you can do to ground. It could be placing your feet flat on the floor. Okay, we can do this now. Relaxing the shoulders away from the ears because sometimes we hold a lot of that tension up in the upper back, even in our hips. So just allowing, just giving yourself a little wiggle, a little shake, dropping the shoulders, relaxing, unclenching the jaw, closing your eyes, or just softening the gaze, and just taking 3 deep breaths. So let's ground together. Take a deep breath in. Exhale out the mouth. Take a deep breath in. Exhale out the mouth. Final deep breath in. Exhale out the mouth. And as you gather yourself in these breaths, maybe your hands go one to your heart center and one to right by your belly button. Or maybe they both go to the shoulders as you breathe. Maybe they stay by your side. Maybe this prompts you just to take a couple more deep breaths now that you're coming down into the ground out of your head. Maybe as soon as you take those breaths, you just shake the fingers, give yourself a head roll, shoulder roll. Okay, I'm good. Feel cleanse that energy, whatever it was, out and away from me. Shield myself with a bubble, which, we'll get into here in a minute. It could even be a physical activity. And I know, I'm not one to go and go do physical activity. When I feel ungrounded, sometimes I just want to pout, not do anything. Let me just be. But sometimes, if the weather's good for it, you got to go outside. One, going outside and doing that breathing exercises while you feel the sun on your skin, while you feel the breeze, flow through your hair. Even if you feel the drizzle of raindrops, gently kissing your cheeks. It doesn't take a long time to just take those quick breaths. You know what I mean? Just to reground yourself. But physical activity could be going for a walk, going for a run or a stroll, and just being really mindful of, people you pass by. Are there clouds in the sky today? What do the buildings look like in color? Like you're really taking things in to ground yourself through. Maybe it's just dancing. You know what I mean? Dancing in your chair, dance like no one's watching, singing, snuggling with your loving pets. Grounding also could be holding a crystal or maybe even wearing crystals. Okay. I like to use a lot of black tourmaline also. And just kind of, but anything tangible to kind of bring you back. Grounding can also be eating and drinking something, like eating something nourishing, drinking some water, yeah, or some electrolytes. Grounding is just absolutely essential, okay? When we deal with a lot of energy from people, if you're peopling, but especially if you've been doing any, astral traveling, you've been working with, clients, you've been reading for someone, you gotta reground that energy. Okay. You cleanse yourself of it, reground, flex, flicking it off the fingertips, shaking it off, whatever it is. Okay. So just making sure that we ground, especially when we have a lot of emotion. Okie dokie. Shielding is, just like anybody else, you can do your shields however you want to, but I do shield myself each and every day. It doesn't have to be a big elaborate thing, okay? It can be, just depending on what you're doing. If I'm going to see a lot of people, I'm going to spend a little bit more time grounding and shielding slash protecting my energy, protecting myself. So maybe that day, instead of just using my protection oil, I got protection oil, some protective bracelets or a necklace on. Maybe I used some Florida water as a deeper protection. Maybe I use glamour magic to also protect, and shield me. Whatever it is, it's it's going to depend. It's like the remix. It's going to depend on what you're doing that day. So you, a lot of my clients don't shield or protect themselves each day. And I had read that when you walk around unshielded, especially as an empath, when you just feel things so deeply, it's like being a lint roller in a house with a cat that's shedding, or maybe like a husky that's shedding, and you pick everything up, and that sticky strip gets used up super quick. And as you're that lint roller that just picked everything up super quickly, that's why you feel heavy, fatigued. Your energy just feels, gunky. It can really take an energetic toll on you. And that energy is going to start, you're going to start feeling it physically. Okay. So I really like that. So we don't want to be a lint roller, stuck, with one pass of dusting off some long-haired animal stuff that you're just collecting all of it. Okay, so it's not hard. If you feel like you're just going to be indoors all day, you're kind of vegging to yourself, maybe you don't really need to shield. But in the habit of doing this, maybe you close your eyes and you just think of yourself in a protective white light or golden light. Yeah, you're in your protective bubble. You are shielded. You can do something like um, oils. You can put some protection oils. I create my own. You can certainly make your own or buy some. Um, you can even um, do some shielding with your makeup or perfume that you're using, cologne that you're using. You can use sigils or runes, and you can put that in it. You don't have to like draw it on your skin, but you can use it like with the lotion and just protect you and shield your energy that way. Okay. Again, you can use a smoke cleanse. You can use certain crystals that really shield out negative energy or whatnot. Unless you're doing something like a protective work, then you can start doing, some fire magic. Maybe you even have you've programmed some jewelry or clothing color that is protecting and shielding. So now, when we talk about why do witches veil, which is what came out as a question in the first place, when we think of veiling, in traditional witchcraft or the occult, wearing veils or like head covering is a scene to either connect to the divine or to tap into someone's wisdom especially when we're doing like ritual ceremonies, even like it could be shielding from, everyday activities, but it can also really be an energy protection thing. Okay. So many believe that veiling acts as a barrier to protect their personal energy from the outside influences, especially when you're doing some kind of workings. But your veil doesn't actually have to be like a headband or an actual veil, that you put over yourself. It can be, but it doesn't have to be that way, especially if you are, doing witchcraft or your spiritual practice on the down low. Okay. So this is when I saw like the veiling, right? I right away someone was like, so wearing like hoods. And I'm gonna be honest, when I first thought about veiling, I thought about when we would go to church and my mom would tell us that if her siblings forgot to bring like their little veil before they went to church, they had to use like a Kleenex to put over their head, because doing that in church was like a sign of humility and really seeing the relationship between yourself and God. So it was really something that was there to connect to the divine, but also it was a devotional act. It was seen as a sign of respect, um, it, and to have modesty, So back in the day with my mom, and I'm sure now, but their skirt couldn't be so many inches above the knee, which is like 2 inches, maybe. You know what I mean? And they had to have the veil. Um, but as we grow into our spiritual practice, veiling is your personal choice. So maybe you don't veil, but you use protection oils. Maybe you don't veil, but you have, your shielded bubble. But when you're channeling, especially when you're doing workings for others, so if you're a coach, you're doing Reiki or you're channeling for someone, you're doing readings for divination, it could just be another added layer of protection for you. So when we look at, the veiling, right? It's just, reminding that we're connecting to our higher self and we're also protecting, okay? And we're protecting that crown chakra, is what we're doing. The veiling can also help with grounding. It makes us feel we're grounded, we are safe, and we're protected, and we're not up in our head, we're down in our root. Shielding is often used a lot. Veiling is also seen as shielding, which is used a lot by empaths, right? It could be seen as a way to focus, which keeps us grounded and rooted. Um, it is our hair, and I do want to do an episode on hair. Our hair also absorbs a lot of energy. So, in order to protect it, this is how people veil. Now, they can physically veil. Um, they'll maybe put braids or twists with ribbon or things, certain kind of oils to protect the hair without absorbing a lot of energy. And sometimes veiling is most common. So, oh, and also it could be seen as honoring culture or ancestors. So you when you're doing veiling, right? Especially if you're working or doing workings or your spiritual craft on the DL. This is where you get creative, right? So for myself, I know I use handkerchiefs to veil. When I'm doing readings. So sometimes you'll see me with a handkerchief, and it doesn't like I'm not covering my whole head, although I have, but just using that because I it's programmed to protect my energy and to ground me, and so that nothing, the other person's energy doesn't stick to me. But sometimes I'll just tie the knot on the top of my crown of my head versus, at the nape of my neck, whatever. I even use color magic associated with my handkerchiefs, depending on what I'm doing, whether I'm leading guided meditation for a group, whether I'm doing a Reiki session one-on-one, or I'm doing divination for others or teaching. Um, I also like to use my hats. I am a hat girly. I love wearing hats. So my hats are my veil. I am protecting my crown chakra. I'm feeling grounded, and I also color coordinate my hats as well. Now, this may throw y'all for a loop, but your hair ties, scrunchies, and clips, all of those could be a way that you veil. And you don't have to, program it every day. So, here we go. Maybe you, I don't know, want to pause it right here and you want to take notes real quick. You can take a container, right? Just grab any container. I don't care if it's a Ziploc bag or Tupperware, okay? Doesn't matter. Just grab a container. And you can, at this time, you want a container that's going to be able to hold your items, right? So let's say you wear hair ties and scrunchies and clips, um, or bobby pins, whatnot, okay? And maybe you want to throw in some handkerchiefs or even like those, what are those called? Um, it's like, do you remember in COVID, right? How could we forget? Where you could use like those coverings that would go around your neck, like in the winter, and they were runners usually use them, right? To because they were long enough where they can like cover your nose and your mouth, but they could also come up over your head. Those things, I don't, what are those things called? Whatever those, headbands, any accessory like that. So you want to cleanse that little, whatever it is you're using, that container. So again, cleansing, smoke cleanse, using your own breath, using your own hands. Like I cleanse this of any energy, blah, blah, blah. Right? Now you're going to take your hair ties, your scrunchies, your ligas, your hair headbands, whatever. You're going to put them in this container. And then you can again use incense or cleanse or just, put your hands over it. And you're going to say that you are charging all of these items in this container and it's going to protect your energy and it's a veil to shield and protect your energy or to help you to connect with your higher self or maybe all of the above. And then you can put a lid or close it. You can throw some crystals in there to charge it, some selenite, some clear quartz, jet or tourmaline if it's for protection. You can put in some labradorite or some amethyst if you're trying to connect, with your higher self and you just, you're protecting yourself. And you leave it there. And then when you're ready in the morning, you grab a scrunchie and you just veiled. Ta-da! Not hard. Same thing can be done with your hats. Okay. You could even, I don't know, with oil or just your hand, your finger, you can create a sigil. I believe I did an episode on sigils, or just put, the Algis rune where it's for protection and put it in there. You could even make a spray, very easy peasy. If it's just water and salt, you shake it up. Salt for protection, rosemary for protection. You can just spritz all of your things. You can charge it in the full moon. You can charge it in the new moon. Whatever you feel is calling out to you. Now, you are going to have to periodically cleanse these items. So you can cleanse them, like I said, any of the examples earlier. You can even like when you wash them, because I mean, I hope you're washing your hats and I know your scrunchies also get dirty, but even like your hair ties doesn't take much if you just fill your sink up, maybe with some moon water or regular. But even the soap that you're using, you're cleansing off any energies that happen to be absorbed or lingering on these items. And then you rinse it and then it's cleansed. And then you just charge it and allow them to dry. And there you go. On the go, you don't have to worry about it. You're good. You can even just leave the crystals in there. That is veiling. I highly recommend you veil. If anything else, you should be shielding and protecting yourself. Those are the things, those should always be your go-to things, especially, if you're going to be peopling, even if you're like, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom. Yeah, you should still be. You should definitely still be. Okay? Because you still absorb a lot of energy. And guess what? Being a stay-at-home parent is a big job that is like never ending. Okay? So you need to ground and shield and cleanse yourself. Remember, you got to fill your cup. You can't just assume that anything. You can't assume that just because you're not, in a corporate job 9 to 5, that, well, that doesn't pertain to me. Because I can guarantee at some point you drop off and pick up the children, right? You're dealing with going to the groceries, or you have errands to run. And even if you're at the house all day, you still have people coming in and out, a spouse, family members, friends, your kiddos that are at school or daycare all day still come through your home. And sometimes they don't know any better. They're absorbing everybody's energy. So, very, very important for everybody. I hope this helped. I was going to say clear the air on any questions you may have had on grounding, cleansing, shielding, and veiling. I know I was getting a lot of questions on veiling. So I hope that answered your question. If you have any further questions, you can hit me up on my socials. I got the links below in the show notes. And as always, I love to hear from you. All right, y'all, we're off to a great start, season two. So until next time, I will see you at the crossroads.